In the grand theater of life, we all seek a comeback, a resurgence, a rekindling of our inner fire. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience. This is not just another podcast. This is a journey, a venture into the heart of human spirit, the power of resilience, and the art of reigniting our passions.
We have a special guest today, Pam. I'm so excited. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our guest. I'm excited to hear their story and insight about overcoming adversity. So without further ado, I'll give it to you, Pam. Let us know.
Our guest story is just absolutely incredible. When I read it, I was like, oh my gosh. So excited. Today we've got Marcy Langlois. Did I say that right? Okay, perfect.
Nailed it.
Okay, awesome. Yay. That's like the most stressful part of this whole thing. So Marcy was born with a cleft lip and plate, and childhood was marked with excruciating series of surgical procedures, 23 in all before the age of 18. Because she looked and talked different than other kids, she was relentlessly teased and bullied. Her journey into adulthood was marked by challenging, traumatic, and downright tragic waypoints. Coming out as a queer woman, involvement in a multi-fatality car accident, and a devastating descent into addiction and chronic illness. Though she got off to a rough start in life, Marcy has discovered one thing, that no matter what obstacles are in your path, living beyond your limits is not just a dream, it's infinitely possible. Welcome. We're so honored to have you with us. And I'm going to hand it over to you for you just to really start us off by sharing your story, because it is a pretty incredible one.
Yeah, thank you so much, gals, for having me. I'm so appreciative to be here and to be with your audience today. Talking about adversity at any time is always like my favorite topic, and all the themes that run alongside adversity and overcoming it. So it's a pleasure to be here today. There's so many things that we could talk about when it comes to my story. And you really set it up quite well based on my bio. Yes, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and that just means basically you have no roof to your mouth, and your lip does not grow all the way across. And so you have a gap in your lip, and there's a hole in your nose inside. And so, and typically it can reflect that there's a whole bunch of other internal issues that are going on that no one's aware of. So I'm 48 years old. So I was born before the time of amniocentesis. And so no one knew that I was coming into the world like this. I was born in a really rural part of Vermont. And so I was taken to the university hospital, and I spent the first 7 days of my life there. And they were just going through all the tests to find out, is my heart okay? Is my digestive system okay? What's going on internally? And luckily for me, the only thing that was going on for me was what they could see. It was my face. It was all in my face. And but I bring that up really because that is sort of the paver for the rest of my life, is that I spent those first 7 days in the hospital. And yes, my mom came, and yes, my mom was there. But as a newborn baby, being ran through the ringer like that with all that testing, people feeling frantic around me, that baby is just taking everything on. And I don't know if you know, but our nervous system is wired in the first 90 days that we're alive. And the only thing we know is either we're safe or we're not. And so for the first 7 days of my life, I definitely did not feel safe. And that was the primer, right? For everything else that came after that. And so I had my first surgery when I was 3 months old. And my mom fed me with an eyedropper because I had no ability to suck on a bottle. So I ate like every 20 minutes, but I always was starving because I was never satiated eating with an eyedropper, obviously, right? So all of these things I've come to learn really in the most recent years are such a big deal about how that set my body up physically. So that amount of stress and chaos in my life really created a mess in my system, all of the systems in my body. I had an alcoholic father. We were definitely in poverty. We had no running water and no electricity at times. It was a mess. It was all a mess, right? I knew at a very young age that I was a lesbian. I couldn't name that, but I knew something was wrong. And I was sitting in a Catholic school, brought up in a very Catholic home and a very Catholic family. And being lesbian was not ideal in any way whatsoever. And so that was compounding everything else that was going on. And I kept praying to Jesus that I would not wake up and be a lesbian the next day. Literally, like, I can't believe this is really going to be my plight. Like, come on, don't we have enough going on, you know? But it turns out that you can't really change that. And so I just did the best that I could with it. And I tried to deny it all of my life. And that didn't work out so well either. And finally, like when I got into high school and I got through some really major surgeries, a lot of reconstruction, my jaws broke twice, plates and screws put in, taken out, like the whole 9 yards, my nose reconstructed. I thought, okay, I'm kind of like on the path now, right? Like I'm going to move forward. I've applied at college. I've gotten accepted at college. I'm going forward, right? And I'm on my way to my after school job, January of my senior year, and I hear a song on the radio, and I'm 5 minutes early. So I drive through our small town, and I come back, and a man pulled out in front of me, and I could not stop my car. And I tried everything that I could to stop the car, and I tried to avoid him, but there was no avoiding him because he didn't see me. So as I'm trying to avoid him, he keeps coming towards me. And regretfully, his 3 passengers all perished in that accident that day. And I just have to take a minute every time I say that. It's been a long time. But that's still tender for me. So at that time, my life was never the same after that moment. That changed everything about who I was. And I had already started dabbling with drugs and alcohol to deal with all the untreated trauma that I had already experienced up into that point. And after that, it was non-negotiable. I could not be awake and not be checked out in some way using some substance. It was so painful to just be alive. I felt responsible for the accident, even though I was not legally found responsible in any way. But because lives were lost and I hit that car, I assumed that blame and responsibility. And I woke up every day and believed that I didn't deserve the air that I was breathing, and I thought that I should be dead. And I wanted to die, but I didn't have the guts to take my own life. And so the next best thing that I could do is deal with it the best that I could, which was drugs and alcohol. And I did that. And I did that for a very long time until I was 27. So 10 years later, um, I was dying. Drugs and alcohol were killing me. And I had a daughter at this time. I had met a woman who had a daughter, Brianna, and she was 8. And I had come into their life. She didn't invite me in, obviously, right? Like, but I assumed that role, like that I was her parent. And I took that responsibility on too. And one day I picked her up after school, and I had been at the bar drinking already. And I was bringing her back to the bar because that's what my dad did with me. And on the way back to the bar, it was so crystal clear to me. It was like a 2x4 in the moment, right across the head. Marcy, you are literally doing the same thing to this little girl that was done to you. And within the next 10 days, I don't know the timeline exactly because at the end of my drinking, I was drinking all day, every day, and I could not stop. So I don't know exactly, but roughly sometime within 10 days, I attended my first 12-step meeting, and I've never taken a drink or a drug since that day. And that was the beginning. And I thought, though, after like 5 days of being there, that I had arrived, right? That everything was going to be great, and my life was going to be so great, and your life was going to be great, and all we're all going to ride off into the sunset, right? And unfortunately, recovery doesn't work like that, right? Recovery is just gives you the opportunity to start to repair your life and start to heal and do the things that are necessary. And so within short order, a couple of years of being sober, I went to meetings every day. I didn't know how to live sober, and I was still in so much pain from all the stuff that was not healed. And I still didn't really think that I deserved to be alive. And so I did whatever I could. And I also had a sales job at the time. I still do, as a mortgage banker. And let me tell you, for someone who has no self-worth and no self-esteem, getting in a sales position is like the worst thing you can possibly do, because I got all my value and worth from that job. And no one there is telling you to go home, right? Like you're done for the day. And I worked myself to death. And what I learned is that I had switched addictions. I switched from drinking and drugging to working. And that worked for a long time, or I thought it worked for a long time. I got into therapy and I started doing the work faithfully. I went to therapy sometimes 3 times a week because I needed that much help and support to deal with the stuff that had happened. But my body just kept deteriorating no matter what I was doing. I was always getting worse, never better. And the symptoms increased. So I was having anywhere from 10 to 15 panic attacks a day. I had psoriasis covering 50 to 70% of my body. I was having heart palpitations. I had chronic infections that no one could name or diagnose or heal. Would wake up every day and felt like I had the flu. You name it, I had it going on. I had a mess, right? Like the complete opposite of what I thought would happen when I got sober. And this is now like 5 years into my recovery, and my body is literally falling apart. But I, just like a true addict, and what we're famous for is that we don't give up and we don't give in very easily, right? I kept going. And I was getting all the accolades in my profession and, in the top 1% and all of these things. And that just kept fueling this emptiness inside of me, right? I couldn't name this or see it at the time, but looking back, this is what I can name today, right? And so I kept doing that. And finally, in 2021, my body said no more. And I got to the point I had started having tremors. I didn't know that they were tremors because I've never had tremors in my life. But I started having tremors, and then I would have these random other symptoms. My vision would be strange, and my heart would be doing these erratic things. And it would happen on different days and different times. And I couldn't trace anything of what I was eating, or I couldn't line anything up. And this went on for a couple of months. And I told my doctor at the time, like, this is what's going on. And she kept saying, Marcy, you need to stop working. And I kept saying, but you don't understand. And I kept working. And finally, around Christmas time, I said, okay, I'm gonna take a break at Christmas time. I'm gonna take a week off. So I did that. And then, of course, I went right back to the grind in January. So on February 6th of 2021, my body said, you're done. And I literally could not tell you if my desk was moving, if I was moving, if the monitor was moving. I couldn't tell you because the tremors in my brain were so bad. I literally could not differentiate what was moving or not. And I knew then I was in big trouble. And so I called my branch manager at the time and said, I'm done. Like, I can't do this for one more minute. And she said, take a long weekend. We've got your business. No problem. So that was Thursday. And I was to come back to work on Monday. And as soon as I had that pass, my body said, oh, good. Right. And that's when it really got serious very quickly. And I started having shortness of breath and trouble breathing, and my heart was crazy. I mean, every system in my body there was something wrong. Something was going on with it. It was literally from head to toe dysfunction. And it was because my nervous system had taken over my immune system, and my immune system was just crazy. So I was bedridden for 40 days. I had 3 days that I thought I was dying. It looked like it from all intents and purposes on the outside for sure. And I was terrified, but it was the best thing that ever happened. And the reason that I say that is because there was a reckoning in those moments. It was 2:30 in the morning. I couldn't see. It wasn't because it was dark in the room. It was because I had no vision. I could feel every blood vessel in my body had fully dilated from the amount of histamine that was in my body. So if I stood up, I don't know if I was going to die or pass out. I'm not sure what was going to happen, but I didn't dare to move. And it was during COVID. And I knew if I went to the hospital and caught COVID, I was definitely going to die because I already had my own cytokine storm going on in my body from the over response of my immune system. So I couldn't call 911. There was nothing I could do except lay in that bed. And it was so powerful because in that moment of reckoning, it was, okay, so all these things that you thought were so important are not. Where are they right now? Are your clients calling you and helping you? Right? Like, is the amount of money you've been able to save in your bank account going to buy you freedom from this or heal your body in some way? No. Right? I don't feel any safer because of any of those things. Like nothing, right? Nothing is going to save me in this moment. And if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And there's not one thing I can do about that. And to just fully surrender to that, like fully surrender. Like, if I die in this moment, is this okay with me? And I couldn't say yes. And the reason I couldn't say yes is because I had not loved my wife the way that I knew she deserved to be loved. I had not shown up for our daughter in the way that I should have because I was too busy working. I was too busy working. And after those days passed, I knew that I was never going to live my life like I did before. Never. And I went back to work, and I went back to work for an hour a day. And now I work 2 hours a day. And, this is 3.5 years later now, right? And I still only work 2 hours a day. And I devoted my entire life to healing myself, my body, my marriage, my relationship with my daughter, and everything, all of it. All the garbage had to go. And that's what I've done for the last 3.5 years is commit my life to that. And now I want to help other people do it.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Reignite Resilience. We hope that you had amazing ahas and takeaways. Remember to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like it and download the upcoming episodes. And if you know anyone in your life that is looking to continue to ignite their resilience, share it with them. We look forward to seeing you on our future episodes. And until then, continue to reignite that fire within your hearts.